everybody, my name is Christian Keeter, and this is I Just Want to Talk About the Bible. I wanted to record a brief introductory episode to explain a little bit about me and who I am, and also what the scope and focus of this podcast is going to be. Well, for starters, like I said, my name is Christian. I live in North Carolina, which is on the eastern coast of the United States. I've lived here actually pretty much my entire life. And I'm married to my wife, Lacey, who is stunningly gorgeous and extremely godly, and who has been an extreme encourager to me in this process with this podcast, just encouraging me just to take steps forward. And next to salvation, she is God's greatest gift to me. We have two daughters. One's name is Felicity, and then our second daughter's name is Serenity. She will be born in October. And so why another podcast about the Bible? There are so many. In fact, I realized how many there were when I was trying to decide on a name for this podcast, because I felt like every single name that I thought of was already taken. But why another podcast on the Bible? Well, I'm not at all in any way, shape, or form trying to compete with the podcasts that already exist. Nor am I saying that those podcasts are insufficient, inadequate, or are somehow lacking and I'm coming in to save the day. Nothing like that, no. The bottom line really is that I feel in my heart, truly and honestly, that God has called me to teach. He's called me to teach, and I have a great burden on my heart to use the podcast platform to do so. I'm on staff at a ministry called Mentoring Men for the Master, which is an international ministry, and what we do is we come alongside of local churches, pastors, and just individual believers, and we disciple them. We help them just see, what it looks like practically to walk with Jesus. The mission statement is encouraging, training, and equipping men to know and follow Jesus. And through that ministry, I have had the privilege of interacting with believers truly all over the world. But in particular, there is a strange, just huge amount of people that are connected to us from Kenya. And we just attribute it to the Lord. Revival seems to be happening out there. And we have just had the privilege of interacting with a whole lot of Kenyan believers. And in the course of my conversations with them, they have brought up so many good questions. And we've had so many great conversations about the Bible. And one thing I noticed is that the more I interacted with them, the more I would hear the same question from different believers. And that really helped push me forward in this process, where I thought I need to have somewhere where I can store the answers to these questions that they're asking me, so that instead of having just to repeat myself over and over again, I could simply say, go listen to podcast episode 8 or whatever, where I'm just going to deal with these questions. So this podcast, the title, I Just Want to Talk About the Bible. Like I said, I was going through a lot of different names, all of which I thought were really clever. And apparently they were too clever because other people had thought they were clever as well. So my wife Lacey and I were talking one evening just about the possible names, and because you want a name that captures what you're going to do, but broad enough to give you some freedom underneath it. And she recommended, what about I Just Want to Talk About the Bible? And that totally stuck with me. I thought, yeah, that's exactly what I want this to be. This is exactly what I have in mind. I just want to talk about the Bible. And so I just started taking steps forward, and the more I thought about it, the more I liked that name. So everything we talk about on this podcast is going to be somehow, some way connected to the scriptures, the Holy Bible. And it's going to, as far as I can tell right now, and this is of course subject to change as things develop and we move forward, but there's 3 primary categories that these podcast episodes are going to fall under. The first one, and arguably the most important, is just what the Lord is showing me personally. What he's been teaching me in my time with him. They're not proper lessons per se that I'm organizing to give, or necessarily sermons. It's just one heart sharing with another about what the Lord has shown me. And I've just found that when you share something that God has shown you, there's power. When you share something that originated with you, people, might think you're smart, but there's no power. So that first and foremost, if God has shown me something, I want to share it with you. Second, it's going to be a Q&A sort of thing. Like I said, I have these Kenyans and others who have been asking just questions about the Bible, about the faith, Jesus, Christianity, the Bible, all of this. And I've been compiling these in a very long list now, just so that I can start answering these questions. And so a Q&A series will be a big part of what we do here. In fact, this is a good time for me to include the podcast email, because if you have questions or topics that you would like to discuss on this podcast or just to hear or learn more about, I would love to hear that. The email address for the podcast is ijustwanttotalkabout@gmail.com. And then you just send in what you just want to talk about. I understand that it's a little, long of an email address, so I'm going to put it in the show notes as well, just so we can make sure we got it written down correctly. But I just want to talk about @gmail.com. And so the third category will fall under the banner of what I guess you could just call learning how to read the Bible. It's going to deal with things like identifying when you're reading the Bible, what genre am I reading right now? Am I reading a narrative? Am I reading poetry? Am I reading something else? It's going to talk about just how to, hopefully it'll be a time where you're equipped with new tools so that as you go through the Bible, you start to see things and you start to notice things. That has been a big part of my walk with the Lord. And the more I develop and learn and get equipped with those tools, the more exciting the Bible becomes to me. And the more deep and more rich and more profound it becomes as well. And included in this will be things like overview of the Old Testament, overview of the New Testament, just these kind of skills that actually help you just place what you're reading into the timeline of the Bible. And so I hope that that's helpful. So those are the three categories that we're going to be looking at. Like I said, I would love to hear any questions that you may have at that email address, and I am excited moving forward. All right, see you guys later.